Good to see everybody here. Just to start off, obviously we're very disappointed and upset at the result on Saturday. But after reviewing the film and being with our team yesterday, we think it is possible to be angry and optimistic at the same time. We're certainly angry again at the result and the things that we did that led to the result. But from what we see in our performance, there's a lot of reasons to still be optimistic. Not just optimistic in terms of what's available for us this season, but obviously also optimistic for what we think where this program is going beyond. The way that we started the game was probably the biggest sense of disappointment. Certainly the way that we started and the way that we finished it. But the way that we started it, we had an excellent week of preparation. Our guys were extremely focused and dialed in at the hotel on game day. And we obviously just started very slowly. Part of the credit, of course, goes to them, which would be to be expected. That's probably the best atmosphere they've had in Kenan Stadium in who knows how long. So you have to give them some credit. However, after we got it righted, I thought we were by far the better team and at times bordering on dominance. Our issue was that our dominance, especially at the line of scrimmage on both sides, our ability to run the football and our ability to shut down the running game, which we had a lot of respect for, was not being shown on the scoreboard because of either issues in terms of red zone offense or kicking game. So as we were the better team, you know, it's almost like an NBA game when teams went on runs. They went on their run, and then when we went on our run, we don't feel like we got the separation on the scoreboard that really the play the play was dictated, that in essence the way it looked. And then the finish, certainly the way that we finished our last two drives defensively were disappointing. Part of that had to do with the run game and some of the loosening up of our run fits to deal with some of the issues that they're causing us in the passing game. But to be able to finish the way that we did and give that last drive, including the long fourth down, was extraordinarily disappointing and a breakdown on multiple levels. That being said, for the second straight week, Jarrett Williams took our offense down the field, gave us a chance to win or tie the game, and we had a chance to do both. We put Bubba Baxa out there at the end with almost the identical kick he made to begin the game. He did not make the kick. That's certainly not why we lost the game. Bubba's our kicker. We have great faith in him. We know that he is as talented as anybody out there. We see it every day in practice. Bubba can't let one miss turn into two misses. And if you even think going back to the Florida game, the first drive of the game, he made a field goal that we had to retake because of the delay of game. That's hard on a guy. He made it again. He made another one again. But then when we had a miss, one thing kind of begets the other. We had issues in field goal protection. The first short kick was actually deflected at the line of scrimmage. It was low, however. And then the same thing with the PAT. The PAT, we had a breach in protection. However, the kick was also low. So those are things that we can work on this week, but we've got to support Bubba. That he's our guy, and we do believe in him. All that being said, we're very, very excited to come home. I think that's just what this team needs at this time. We need to get back into familiar surroundings, get in our stadium, get around our fans, and get ourselves going. And I think the season, the way that our schedule breaks, that we have that exact opportunity to do that. Like I mentioned, I think that this team's goals are all still ahead of it. And to get around our fans, our people, and to play. We have probably put, especially when you look at the youth we have on offense, if you look at the way that our schedule breaks down, we have probably gone into the two most difficult environments we will play in all year. And the way that those guys have performed and the improvement on our freshmen that played from week 1 to week 2 was really extraordinary. And now it would be nice to get back home where we're not the ones with, facing the adversity all the times and to put out a performance that gets everybody excited about Hurricanes football. And with that, I'll open up with questions.
I know, Manny.
I'm sorry, back here.
Go with the microphone, Barry. Hey, Manny. So I wanted to ask you, look, the Miami teams in the last few years have also had struggles. And in some of those situations, social media can be an issue. Have you talked to your team about how to deal with the outside noise? Because I know you always want to keep stuff focused here. Talk about that a little bit. Are you curtailing maybe some of the stuff that they have to look at or want to look at?
Well, we can't control what they look at. We can certainly talk about it. But we have said all along, regardless of, even before we started playing a game, the change is going to come from the inside out. And we can't stick our head out the window and wonder what everybody thinks about us. Because what we think about us is really the most important thing. And that's why when you look at at a game like this, you have to look through the total performance and say, okay, what about this gives us reason for optimism? What about this do we like? What about this do we not like? Because there's so many plays, and we know, and this is usually what happens when you lose a game. There are so many opportunities, there's so many plays that if one thing goes another way, you win the game. And you could argue that if one thing goes another way the last 2 weeks, you're 2-0 and ranked who knows what. But here's the thing: even if that was true, it wouldn't have changed our performance. So let's say the fumble that Patchen gets on the last drive and we win, we all high five. The performance is still the same. So you still have to come inside and you still have to say, here's where we are, here's what we like, here's what we don't like, and here's how we have to improve. The fact that you're labeled with a record, that it is what it is, but that does not absolve us from being a team that has to find a way to get better week in and week out, and that's really what our main goal is.
Manny, I know we probably wouldn't be having this conversation if the 4th and 17 had been stopped, but I know there was a lot of optimism that this team could conceivably be a playoff contender this year, certainly in the national discussion. Do you think that was realistic? Do you have enough material to be able to be that level team yet, where we're talking about a top 15 team competing for a playoff berth, or do you need more recruiting-wise over the next couple of years to achieve that position?
I think the labels that you're speaking about, again, are labels that usually come from outside in. That's not anything that we ever really talk about internally. Right now, it's just like, how good can this team be and what can we become? And as you know, we didn't know who our starting quarterback was, 3.5 weeks ago. So what we talk about as coaches and what we talk about in front of the players is let's get what we got, and let's get what we got playing as good as we can get it. And that's why I think in this building, I think there's still a lot of optimism of what this team can achieve this year and beyond. Because again, when I see a football team, you've heard me say, play like the Miami Hurricanes. And when I see us, our offensive linemen, blowing out huge holes and our backs running hard and running over people and finishing runs and getting explosive runs and sort of starting to dominate both sides of the line of scrimmage, I started seeing glimpses of what we all envision this program being. Now, again, it's going to come in glimpses, and the more we get it, the more, we'll see it. But, like I said, where all the ends up, we even told the team, if we start trying to figure out where all this takes us at the end of the year, we're taking our eyes off the main thing, which is right now getting ourselves better and playing Bethune-Cookman this Saturday.
Manny, on defense, who calls the plays and how much involvement do you have? It's a lot different, I guess, this year.
In terms of the coaching staff?
Yes.
Yeah, Blake Baker is our play caller. He's our defensive coordinator. I'm involved in all the game planning meetings, all the meetings, watching practice every day. I can't have a better defensive staff than Blake, Ephraim Bonda, Jonathan Packey, Mike Rump, Todd Stroud. These are all individuals who we all know the ins and outs of defense. We all know exactly how everything works. And we know the fixes when something doesn't go right.
But how different is it with you not there? With you not there all the time like you were last year? How much of an effect has that had, do you think?
I don't think it certainly has not had an effect on our play. If you wanted, we probably miss Jaquan Johnson as much as they miss me running around on that field and Charlotte Red Wine and those type guys. And listen, and part of that's part of the deal. We were watching Bethune-Cookman film today from our game in 2017, where I thought we played very poorly on defense that day. And I'm watching sophomore Shaquille Quarterman not be able to get the running back on the ground. I'm watching Jaquan Johnson and younger guys, Mike Jack, struggle to cover their players, and those guys moving the ball down the field on us because we've got some sophomores in some important positions, and that's just all part of the growth and development, and that's what creates, I think, the excitement of college football, is that your roster's always turning over, and guys got to step up and got to be ready to replace some really important guys that left your team. Yeah.
Specifically with the defensive line position group, is the pass rush where you want it to be right now? Do you feel like they're doing a good job rushing the pass?
I do.
rush?
I think if you look at when we're getting the ball thrown, when people are driving back to throw against us, how quickly the ball is getting out. I think we sacked them 4 times this past game. I mean, that's a lot of sacks. We obviously had 2 on the final drive that led to the 4th down and long. But a lot of stuff we're going to get is going to be quick ball out stuff. A lot of the throws, as you all know now, a lot of the throws are run plays. right? So a big part of North Carolina's offense, those are run plays. So everybody, again, is manning their run responsibilities as it's converting to a pass play. So, I mean, to me, Jonathan Garvin and Scott Patchen have been very disruptive. Greg Rousseau is a guy that's going to continue to play anymore because the guy's flashing every single time. So I think we're you know, we certainly, our pass defense has taken a step back from where it was a year ago, which some of that might be to be expected. But I don't think that's necessarily indicative of the pass rush. Who's up?
Manny, talk about fourth down. There have been so many studies, and coaches always have to make these, split-second decisions during a game. So in this case last week, 4th and 2, I think it was the 21-yard line. Mm-hmm. The studies, the metrics, they say go for it pretty much every time. And then you get into a situation where you don't get it, and you didn't get the opportunity to put those 3 points on the board. You lose by 3, and it becomes one of the places where points potentially were left on the field.
Sure.
Talk about what you got to go through as a head coach making those decisions, what your philosophy is, and would you make the same decision every time?
It's a great question. So you may or may not know, but I'm big into data, right? And sort of the Moneyball effect has sort of filtered into football as well. And believe it or not, there are people who have run every 4th down and who knows what in the history of whenever from every yard line and have a formula. And I equate it a lot to playing blackjack, okay? And that if you understand how to play blackjack, there's certain hands that based on what the dealer's showing, based off what you have, the play is a play is a play. So if you've got a 10, or if you've got a 12 and the dealer's got a 10, you know what I mean? Whether you like it or not, you got to take the card, and you can't always base yourself whether the result justifies it. You may have it's a bad down anyway, but you still have to manage a bad down because over 100 hands or 1,000 hands or 10,000 hands, it's going to prove you right. Now, here's our issue. In college football, we play 12 games, and the amount of decisions that you make are going to be more limited than, of course, sitting in a casino table all night. However, the numbers are still the numbers, and our team knows that. Our players know that. I thought the play call that we had on that was because we know we want a team that wants to be aggressive to go for it on 4th down. I thought Danny Enos called a fantastic play. The guy swipes Jaron's leg. His knee hits, and there were probably 3 plays that were all 50-50 calls, that they got right. That just, holy cow, if it just, forget about his knee hitting it. He had a chance to hit his head on the goalpost. So to me, I think you have to understand, once you understand the data, no matter what the casino puts the next card down, that you trust that you've made the right decision and you've got something. It's not just a feeling or a whim or, just bravado. It's been calculated.
So do you go for it every time in that situation?
It depends. Okay, so it's not just like on the 21 against this team or whatever. It depends on score. So score is an issue with that. It depends on time of game. It depends on the opponent. And actually, believe it or not, the data people, they factor all that in when they come up with kind of their guide of what to do. So I can't say, because if you're like, oh, you didn't go for it the next time, it may be a different situation, different part of the game. But what I knew at that moment of the game is that we were dominant. We finished the first half. We always want to finish right before halftime. We scored 10 points in the final 4 minutes. We came out in the second half. We walked them right down the field. Had a 3rd down and 4. We felt like if we got closer that it would be a go on 4th down. Went for the go because I did not want to kick a field goal and not be ahead at that moment. I really felt like our dominance was telling. And then obviously, your kicking game has to factor in that as well. And they factor all that in. How often does any college kicker make a kick from 37 yards, da-da-da-da. So, all that is goes into the science of it.
Manny, your final drive, looking back last week, with the 2 timeouts left, would you have done anything differently regarding that situation? And also just generally, what have you learned as a head coach these past 2 games?
I thought the way that the timing went, having the timeouts on the last set of downs was exactly what we wanted for a couple different reasons. Obviously, number one, we were able to get out of bounds. There was not a situation in the drive. We were able to get out of bounds on the plays that were getting us down the field. But if you think about that last sequence, we had 1st down and 10 at the 31-yard line, I think, like that. We used 1 timeout on that sequence. But to have 2 timeouts, so on a potential 2nd down play, tackled and bounce, so let's say that occurs, okay? You can call a timeout, save the time, and then have an opportunity. So let's say on 2nd down we get half, okay? You call a timeout. then you'd have an opportunity to get the ball to the middle of the field to call another timeout to kick a field goal and let's take the game to overtime. So to me, again, this is not an opinion thing. This is all the data, all the science is telling you is that the more you can save your timeouts for final drive situations. And I want to make a point about this. And again, the credit goes to our staff and the players as well, is that we cleaned up so many of our pre-snap problems from the Florida game. So we didn't have to waste timeouts on delay of games or being misaligned on offense or having an issue, a pre-snap issue on defense. I think we had 2 timeouts for the final drive of the first half and all 3 for the final drive of the game. So there was not a situation where it really felt like time was bleeding away. It just, the drive took what the drive took. Oh yeah, but to me, this is as you can tell. I mean, I love this part of the game, you know, because that again, that's part of my job. My job is to make sure that in terms of the managing of the actual game itself, that I'm giving our football team the best chance to win. And again, that's why I go back to it's playing the numbers and making sure that you're doing everything you can to at least put us in a position where we could have won the game or kept playing.
Manny, you said something interesting with Joe and Don on your radio show last week. Wanted to ask you about. You said we need to reassign the value of what it means to be a Miami Hurricane. We're changing the value of what it means to be a Hurricane. We should not let others defile it. That's one thing that's happened too often in recruiting for us. I just want to ask what you meant by that. Is that purely players decommitting? And what qualities do you want in recruits that maybe you hadn't valued as much in the past?
There are some things. What I'll tell you broadly is, there are some things that we are changing in terms of what we will do to take a commitment. And not all those things are necessarily grandfathered, but there are some things going forward that what it means to be committed to Miami and a series of criteria that has to happen for that to happen. There is a series of criteria of what happens once you are committed to Miami that's never been in place in the past. And then, you know, and that our recruits are aware of now. You know what I mean? And so we have a whole calendar. And again, I don't want to get into the details of what that is, but just that is something, again, from the inside out. If we don't put value in something, it's just sales, right? If I'm trying to sell you a microphone or something, I've got to create value. I have to make you want this. But before you value it, I have to value it. And so I think the way that we look at ourselves, the way that our current players look at ourselves, and part of it, and it's always going to come from the inside out. That's what I keep saying. It's got to come from inside this building. And then the next step, it should come from our fan base and our community. And part of that is not tolerating, you know, people not respecting the University of Miami, not respecting their hometown team. That's something it's very personal to me. I want it to be personal to our staff. I want it to be personal to our players. And that's okay. And other people can go other places. That's why there's 130 schools. But the University of Miami is going to get back to where it needs to get back to with players that love the University of Miami. They love what it means to be a Miami Hurricane, and they understand that value. So when I say I can see our team and I can see glimpses of what the Miami Hurricane should look like even on Saturday with a very disappointing loss, okay, I want guys that see the same thing. And I want guys that want to be a part of the solution.
Manny, how important is it for fans to show up, you know, this Saturday in the home opener? The game is on ACC Network, and again, a lot of people can't get that game here, and plus having the fans in the seats.
Yeah, well, again, we're very excited to be playing at home. We have been in 2 very difficult environments, and you want our guys to come out, and you want them to feel the support of, you know, the Miami family, the Hurricane family, and to put some pressure on our opponent, because obviously what happens in these next 5 weeks is going to say a lot in terms of where this team is and what happens in our season in the ACC Coastal, right? And so to be able to start, to come home, to feel the energy and the excitement of our fan base, starting with Cane Walk, you know, 2 hours before the game, and just getting off the bus and just seeing people be there. I think there's some things on tape. I would come to watch Cam Harris and DJ Dallas run the ball. I'd come watch Jaron Williams play. And I know for a fact that I'd come watch, you know, Shaquille Corbin, Mike Pickney, and Zach McLeod play their last run of games at home, because those are guys that you want to say 5 years from now, 10 years ago, every time I had a chance to watch Shaq Corbin play, I came to watch him play, you know? And heck, if it happens, come watch Lewis Headley punt. You know what I mean? I mean, that might be worth a ticket too.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you all.